Okay, with that, the Second Judicial District Court of the State of Nevada is now in session. The Honorable Kathleen Sigurdson presiding.
Good morning. I am Judge Sigurdson. We are here today with regards to case number CV 22-01263. This hearing is taking place pursuant to the Nevada Supreme Court Rules Part 9, allowing for simultaneous audiovisual transmission. Today is March 7th, 2023 at approximately 9:05 in the morning. This is the time and place to hold the hearing with regards to the petition for a writ of mandamus and the amended petition for a writ of mandamus filed by the petitioner, Robert A. Conrad, also doing business as thisisreno.com, by his attorney, Luke Busby, versus the City of Reno. All right, any objection to moving forward in this format?
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. Gentlemen, appearances, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. Luke Busby, appearing for petitioner Robert Conrad, DBA thisisreno.com, and I'm also joined by Dr. Conrad. He's on board.
Good morning, Mr. Busby and Mr. Conrad. And for the respondent or the defendant?
Ryan McElhinney on behalf of the City of Reno.
Good morning, Mr. McElhinney. All right, Mr. Busby, this is your petition. You want to kick us off, sir?
I would, Your Honor. We believe this case represents a relatively simple matter. We're challenging the city's denial and delay in responding to 10 separate instances of public records requests. And in our view, the issues come down to 5 essential violations of the Public Records Act. Number 1, failure to timely respond. Number 2, closing records requests without fulfilling them or letting Dr. Conrad know when they'll be fulfilled. 3, denying records requests based on Don Ray v. Bradshaw case, claiming privacy interests in a manner that's inconsistent with the Don Ray decision and other case law. Claiming that records related to active investigations are not public and ignoring that there's a higher bar to clear than simply refusing to disclose the records because a case is active, and denying record requests related to social media communications made in the provision of city services and business in defiance of well-established case law in this matter. And Your Honor, if it would please the court, Dr. Conrad's here, and he's able and willing to testify if the court will entertain as much. He, can give a more nuanced and detailed factual account of what occurred with the records request than I could, and I think his testimony may aid the court in deciding this matter.
That would be great, Mr. Busby. Would you like him to testify at this point, or?
I would, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll go ahead and pursue that. Any objection, Mr. McElhinney?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Busby.
Dr. Conrad, Ms. Shaw, can you swear the witness?
Right hand, please. Dr. Conrad, do you swear the testimony you're about to give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Busby, please proceed.
Okay, I'll try and go through these as quickly as we can, Your Honor.
That's all right.
Dr. Conrad, can you give the court a brief background on what it is you do and what This Is Reno is?
Sure. This Is Reno is an independent news outlet for the greater Reno area. We cover government, school district, arts and entertainment, politics, things like that.
Okay. And in the course of conducting your business, This Is Reno, do you do regular records requests to the City of Reno?
Yes.
Okay. And so I just want to go through each of the requests that you made and ask you some questions about them. Request set number 1, I believe those are reflected in exhibits 1 and 2. Do you have those exhibits for you?
I do.
Okay. And as a preliminary matter, I'd like, I'd move that the court admit exhibits 1 through 29 into the records as evidence. If each of these records are self-authenticating, they either come from the city, they're sworn affidavits, or statements of city officials themselves.
Mr. McElhinney, any objection to that?
I do have an objection. I'll have some piecemeal objections to individual exhibits. But I believe what Mr. Busby is saying, those first few exhibits, I believe it's 1 through 9, I'm willing to just stipulate 2 at this point, and those are the record requests. I'd like to, when Mr. Busby gets to it, I will pose my objection to the individual exhibits at that time.
So let's do that, Mr. Busby. Let's just walk through them one at a time as they come up, okay?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Conrad, do you recognize Exhibit 1?
I do.
What is it?
So this was a records request, exhibits 1 and 2 actually, for body cam footage of Reno police officers, I believe. And I filed that in 2021. And to date, no records have been received. And the city closed the request prior to any kind of production of those records.
Okay, and can you explain briefly why you were seeking the body cam footage of this incident?
Well, generally speaking, body cam footage tends to be more transparent than official statements. So you get, I think, the truth of the matter as opposed to what somebody interprets the truth of the matter being. So I think body cam footage tends to be pretty reliable information.
Okay, and what was the city's response? What was your understanding of the city's response to your records request?
They said it was under investigation and claiming Donray.
Okay, did they provide a date by which or time at which they believed the records would be available for inspection and copying under the Public Records Act?
No, I don't believe so. No.
Okay. So to be clear, in response to your request, they denied it based on Donray and then just closed the request, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Today, have you received any other response to this records request?
Not to my recollection, no.
Okay. All right. Your Honor, I would move that exhibits 1 and 2 be admitted.
Mr. McElhinney?
No objection.
So admitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Conrad, I'd like you to turn to exhibit number 3, if you could.
Okay. All right.
Do you recognize this document?
I do.
Okay, what is it?
This was another request for body cam footage. I requested this in July of 2021. And similar to the previous request, the city closed this one without ever producing the records.
Okay. What's your understanding of the basis of the city's denial of your request?
I believe it was Donray, but I'm not, off the top of my head, I don't recall that specifically.
Okay.
But they said essentially it was an open or active investigation.
Okay.
Mr. Busby, for clarity, are we talking about your request number 2 at this point?
We're referring to exhibit
we're-
number 3 in the exhibits we submitted to the court.
Okay, which request from your petition are we on now? Are we on number 2?
I believe we're on number 2, set number 2.
Very well, thank you.
Now, if I could add, I do apologize that these exhibits don't quite line up with the records request, but it's I believe that's an artifact of the way the city responded to these requests. Rather than keeping them open, they generate new requests. And so that's why there's in request set number 1, 2 exhibits.
Okay, Dr. Conrad, can you explain further what you mean by that?
So I'm on exhibit 3, but I believe in request set number 1, the very first one that we just discussed, I believe the city reopened that and created a new request. So that generated 2 exhibits.
Was that, so just to be clear, exhibits 1 and 2 refer to the same subject matter, is that correct?
Correct.
And did you object to their lack of response when you received exhibit 1? Did you communicate with the city about that?
Request number 1, yes, I did. The request was denied, and I requested updates on December 1, 2021, and then January 20th, 2022. And that's when the city created a new request under my name.
All right. So returning.
Also, I did request another update on March 31st, 2022.
Okay. So, and in response to these requests, did you receive the same or similar answer each time?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. So returning to exhibit number 3,
Mhm.
Dr. Conrad, can you explain to the court why you made this record request in general terms?
So yes, there was an allegation that after a shooting downtown, the police harassed a journalist, a local photographer, for covering that incident and made threats to arrest him and things of that sort. So I did request the body cam footage of the responding officers, and that was in July of 2021. And similar to the previous request, the city closed this one, saying that it was under investigation as well.
Okay, so did you ever receive any responsive records to this request?
No.
And were you ever provided with a date and time after which the city of Reno believed that the record would become available for inspection?
No.
Is there any way for you to determine whether or not or when an investigation closes when you get this kind of response to a public records request?
No, I've been in the past 3 years just forced to guess and make multiple requests as to updates, and I still seem to get the same kind of response each time.
Okay. Your Honor, move that Exhibit 3 be admitted into the record.
No objection.
So admitted, thank you.
Dr. Conrad, can you turn to Exhibit 4, please?
Exhibit 4, yes.
Do you recognize this document, Dr. Conrad?
I do.
What is it?
This is also another request for body cam footage.
Okay.
And this
And
was
when-
made in September of 2021.
Okay. Did you receive or what's your understanding of the response you received from the city to this records request?
Similar to the previous two, they denied the request, saying that it was an open or active investigation. Again, I made multiple requests for updates as to when this would be closed. Yeah.
Did you eventually receive records responsive to this request?
Yes.
Okay. When did you receive them?
I believe September in September of last year, so September of 2022.
Okay. Was that before or after the petition in this case was filed?
After.
Okay. Did you receive any explanation for why the records were being provided after the petition was filed?
They said due to critical staffing, that they said it would be made available at the end of September.
Okay. So it was over a year approximately after you requested these records that you eventually received them?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Your Honor, I'd move that Exhibit 4 be admitted into the record.
No objection.
So admitted, thank you.
Dr. Conrad, can you please turn to Exhibit 5?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize Exhibit 5?
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
So this was a request for copies of emails to representatives of Bird Scooters, which is a franchisee of the City of Reno.
Okay. And what was the city's response to your public records request? What's your understanding of the response?
It was incredibly strange. Well, first they said it was a voluminous request, and then they wanted information that would require having those records in order to provide, such as specific email addresses of people from Bird Scooters.
Okay, but did you know who the people from Bird Scooters were who were communicating with the city?
No.
Okay.
That's what I was. That's in part what the records request was seeking.
Okay. And why were you interested in public records related to Bird Scooters?
So Bird is the second franchisee of the city, doing essentially like rent to use micro mobility, whether it's bikes or in this case scooters. And in advance of the city's approval of the contract with Bird, there was a lot of concern expressed that this was going to be a repeat of the previous franchisee, which I believe was Lime Bikes, which generated a lot of public consternation with bikes being tossed in the river and things of that sort. So there was people that were speculating that essentially Bird would be a repeat of that, with Bird scooters ending up tossed in the river, left all over town and things of that sort.
Okay. And when did you initially make the records request in Exhibit 5?
That was in April of 2022.
And how long was it until you received a response?
Well, let's see. Well, again, the responses were rather strange. So it's, I mean, I guess I received a few responses, but they were so obtuse, I didn't, yeah, it was weird. Again, I had to kind of push back and say, how do you expect me to provide information that I don't have and then, in fact, I'm seeking?
Do you recall how long it took? Did you eventually get records in response to this request?
Yes.
Okay.
A day after they said, well, they kept moving the deadline. So I believe the Public Records Act says they have to give a reasonable deadline, but in this case, they kept moving that deadline down the road, extending it.
Okay.
And I believe I received the records the day after the city said that they would ultimately provide them, after I think 3 deadline extensions.
Okay. All right. I'd move that Exhibit 5 be admitted into the record, Conrad.
No objection.
Thank you. So admitted.
All right. Dr. Conrad, can you turn to Exhibit 6?
Yes,
Do you recognize this document?
I do.
What is it?
This was a records request for complaints the city had received about the Bird scooters. So it was a related request.
Okay. And what was your understanding of the city's response to this public records request?
It's my recollection the city first denied it, saying they didn't have any copies of complaints. And then it did provide one, I believe. And then the city cited Donray decision refusing to disclose the name of the complainant.
Okay.
And did not provide an explanation as to what in Donray would give them the authority to redact the name of the complainant.
Okay. Did you eventually receive these records?
I did again, but you know, I've since come to find out that what I was seeking was ultimately not provided. I actually did a subsequent request that's not in this case, where they did actually provide what I was looking for, which was the complaints that people had been making about where the Bird scooters were located. So I guess the short answer is no, not really, but ultimately yes, because I re-requested it in a different manner.
Okay. Did the city ever relent on its citation to Donray as a basis to refuse to comply with your request in this case?
No.
All right. You know, I'd like to move that Exhibit 6 be admitted into the record.
No objection.
Thank you. So admitted.
Dr. Conrad, can you turn to Exhibit 7?
Yes,
Okay. Do you recognize this document?
I do.
What is it?
So this was a request for complaints that had been made. You may remember, I believe it was last year, there had been complaints about businesses using trivia as a form of entertainment that then would have prompted the city to apply for a certain license to allow them to have that entertainment. I believe that's the one that we're on. And the city's response was that I had to identify certain parcels of businesses in order for them to produce those records. Again, it was very strange. Yeah. And ultimately, I did get, I believe, one complaint. They redacted it, again, similar to the previous one we just discussed. And I challenged the redaction, and they came back and unredacted it and provided it. So in this case, I did get the record. They did unredact it after I challenged it, but the prior records request remains redacted. Again, they cited Donray as a reason, or Bradshaw in both cases.
Okay, and do you recall when you made this request?
Let's see, exact date. I believe it was May of 2022.
And did you receive a response? And I'm sorry, when did you receive your response?
Let's see, May 4th.
Okay.
No, I may have my dates incorrect. I do apologize. Sorry, the way they produce these documents, the very initial one is at the very bottom. So let me correct that. I believe I filed the request at the end of April.
Okay. Right. Your Honor, I'd like to move that Exhibit 7 be admitted into the record.
No objection.
So admitted, thank you.
All right, Dr. Conrad, I'd like you to take a look at Exhibit 8 if you could.
Sure.
And again, do you recognize this document?
Yeah, let me scroll to the bottom again. Yes, I do.
Okay, what is this document?
So this is a copy of the request for, again, more police body cam footage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and what's your understanding of the response you received in response to this request?
So at this point, the city sent me an invoice for, I believe it was like $100. And because we had a similar issue in, I believe, 2020 with the city trying to charge for these records without having the proper noticing of them on their website, then after we filed this complaint, they then produced the body cam footage without charging me.
You're going to move that Exhibit 8 be admitted into the record?
No objection.
So admitted.
It's actually Exhibits 8 and 9.
Dr. Conrad, I'd like to turn to Exhibit number 9 right now, if you could.
Sure.
Do you recognize this document?
I do, yes.
What is it?
This is the RPD fee schedule that was effective July 1, 2022.
Okay, was this the fee schedule that you, or where did you get this fee schedule from?
I believe this is off the RPD website.
Okay.
It's the fee schedule that they post in order to charge for public records.
And do you see body cam footage on there?
No, the only two listings are criminal history and subpoena fee.
Okay. And Your Honor, I'd move that Exhibit 9 be admitted into the record.
No objection.
So admitted.
So just turning back to this issue, have you ever had this issue before with the city where they attempted to charge you for the production of body cam footage?
I did, yes. Again, that was back in, I believe, 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to turn to Exhibit 22 if you could.
Okay,
Do you recognize this exhibit?
I do.
Okay, what is it?
So we had, again, have had these issues ongoing for quite some time, and this is I believe the first response. I had to retain legal counsel in January of 2020 after very similar denials to the ones we're discussing. And some of those, I believe, were also body cam footage.
Okay, so does this document show that you'd crossed this bridge before this issue about whether the city properly charged you with body cam footage?
Yes.
Okay, so the same issue came up almost 2 years later, right?
Correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd move that exhibit number 22 be admitted into the record.
And I should maybe note here that, again, after we challenged this, they did refund the fee that I had paid for this. particular case.
Mr. McElhinney, we have a motion to admit Exhibit 22. Any objections, sir?
No objection, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. 22 is so admitted.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Conrad, can I ask you to turn to exhibit number 10?
Yes,
All right, do you recognize this document?
I do.
What is it?
This was copies of emails and printed correspondence from an attorney to city employees.
Okay. What's your who is the attorney?
Michael Pawnee.
Okay. And do you recall why you were seeking these emails?
I do. We had received a number of tips that downtown casino interests were driving policy through City of Reno employees. And this was not necessarily done in public. So we requested copies of those emails. And yeah, that was the genesis of that request.
Do you recall what the city's initial response was to your records request?
The initial response, I believe, was an untimely response after the 5-day window. And then I believe they said they would generate a response in 10 business days.
Okay. So when did you initially make the request, if you recall?
It looks like this was April of 2022.
Okay. And did you eventually receive responsive records to this request?
I did.
Okay. Do you recall when you received them?
It looks like I got the redacted log toward the end of May, and off the top of my head, I got them at the end of August, 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, did things transpire over that time period? Well, I guess I'll ask in a more straightforward way. Did the delay affect your ability to adequately inform the public about what was going on?
Correct. The issues that were being discussed in these emails really were timely at the time they were written. I do recognize there's going to be a delay in gathering that information. At this point, however, it looked like they were ultimately provided at the end of August, so a number of months after the original request.
Okay.
And after, I believe, I did request a couple, an update or two, and then the city said they would be made available August 1st, and then changed that in July of last year, giving themselves another deadline extension to the end of August.
Okay. We're going to move that Exhibit 10 be admitted into the record.
Objection.
I'm going to allow it. It's going to be admitted. Thank you.
And Dr. Conrad, just stepping back to the big picture for a minute here, what effect does delay in response to public records requests have to what effect does that have on your ability to do your job as a reporter?
It can have a pretty dramatic effect. I mean, it means the difference between a news story being timely or untimely. So typically what I see in government reporting is that some delays have been so extensive that some of the personnel involved or the leaders of those organizations have then retired before they can be held to, address whatever concerns may have been generated by whatever activities we may be looking into.
Do you ever get the impression that the delays are strategic in nature, that they may be purposefully implemented in order to let a hot topic cool down before you're able to respond with records?
I don't know if that's the case. It wouldn't surprise me.
right, Dr. Conrad, I'd like you to turn to exhibit number 11 if you, I'm sorry, yeah, 10, I went through. Exhibit number 11 if you could.
Sure.
Do you recognize this document?
I do.
What is it?
This is a Reno council member in February of last year tweeting that he is publicly engaged with people in a variety of mediums 24/7, whether that's Zoom, Twitter, Facebook, etc.
Did you personally print out this this page?
I did
Okay, and where did you get it?
on Twitter.
Okay.
And this tweet actually occurred during a council meeting. where the
Okay.
Council
Do you
member-
recall the circumstances surrounding, when you first saw this?
I don't.
And do you recall, what your thoughts were when you first saw these tweets?
I believe I was surprised that they would be tweeting that while they're in a public meeting.
Okay.
And I believe that's what the nature of this tweet was about was, oh, well, we respond all the time, whether or not we're in a meeting.
Okay. Here, I'd like to move that exhibit 11 be admitted.
No objection.
So admitted.
All right, Dr. Conrad, can you take a look at exhibit 12?
Yes,
Do you recognize this document?
I do.
What is it?
This is the readily available City of Reno social media policy.
Okay. And what's your understanding of what the city's policy is based on this document?
Essentially, it implies that the city use of social media is public, and that employees should refrain from using their personal social media that would have a negative impact on the city.
Okay. Here, I'd move that exhibit 12 be admitted into the record.
No objection.
So admitted.
All right, Dr. Conrad, can you turn to exhibit 13 if you would?
Yes.
Do you recognize exhibit 13?
I do.
Okay, what is it?
This is a copy of the records request for copies of messages sent and received by that same council member on text, Twitter, Nextdoor, and Facebook. Essentially the private or non-public facing messages.
Okay. And was your request for these records based on the statement of Councilmember Reese that we reviewed in exhibit 11?
Correct.
Okay. And what was the city's, or what's your understanding of the city's response to this public records request?
They did provide some text messages, and then I believe they denied that any non-public facing social media messages would be considered public records.
Okay. And what was your impression when you heard that response?
My impression was that that was incredibly incorrect.
Okay, and why was that?
That kind of reasoning would then open the door to elected officials just using alternate mediums to communicate potentially with constituents in order to avoid having those records be considered public.
And Your Honor, I'd move that exhibit 13 be admitted into the record.
No objection.
Thank you very much. 13 is admitted.
All right, Dr. Conrad, after you received this response to the, from the city, what did you do?
I believe, hold on, I need to look here. I believe they said they wanted just keywords for certain messages. Again, that's kind of you need to know what you're looking for before you can actually make the request, which is part of the nature of the request. So that was, again, a kind of a strange thing And I did request all of the messages, and then at the end of July, at the end of July, they said it would take about another month. And we got about 6 pages of text messages and no other communications.
Okay. Did you receive any objections from the city to production of any of these records?
Yeah, essentially, the city said they have no public records that concern the provision of public services responsive to my request.
Did the city cite any provisions with which you're familiar to deny the request for social media messages?
Yes, Comstock residents and Las Vegas Metro Police versus blackjack bonding.
Okay. And I'd like you to turn to page, I believe it's 3 of 10 of Exhibit 13.
Sorry, I'm scrolling. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
See an email there dated Wednesday, August 31st, 2022?
Correct.
Okay. So did the city produce any records of Twitter, Nextdoor, and Facebook records?
No.
Okay. And is this their response to that request?
Yes.
Okay. And do you see there where they're citing Comstock Residents Association and blackjack bonding?
Correct.
All right. I'd like you to turn to Exhibit 27, if you could.
Okay.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
What is it?
This is the affidavit of the same council member.
Okay. I'd like you to refer to paragraphs 7 and 8. I'm going to read paragraph 7 to you if I could.
Sure.
I hereby certify that I conduct official city business exclusively on my city-issued cell phone and other devices, accounts and systems within the city's legal custody. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that statement is accurate in light of what you know now?
No.
Okay. Why?
It was not hard to get people to provide information that they have communicated regularly with this person on social media.
Okay.
In non-public facing messages.
Okay. And I'm going to read paragraph 8 to you. I hereby certify that I do not conduct official city business on my personal cell phone or any other private device, account, or system under my legal custody or control, but beyond the city's legal custody. Do you think that's true?
It seems like a weaselly statement, frankly. It's trying to say that if he does do that, then it's not in the city's legal custody. So I would have to say, in short, no.
Okay. And let's take a look at paragraph 9. I hereby certify that no public records exist on my personal cell phone or any other private device, account, or system under my legal custody or control, but beyond the city's legal custody. Do you think that statement's true?
Same answer as before, no, and
Okay.
for the same reason.
Right. Your Honor, I'd move that Exhibit 27 be admitted into the record.
No objection.
So admitted.
All right. Dr. Conrad, I'd like you to turn to Exhibit 21.
Okay,
Do you recognize this document?
I do.
What is it?
This is a copy of screenshots from a citizen with the council member in question directly messaging them. I believe this is on Twitter.
Okay.
Or sorry, I take that back. I believe that's on Instagram.
Okay. And can
Maybe
you describe? Okay. Can you describe the contents of the messages that you see in Exhibit A or Attachment A to Exhibit 21?
Yes, these are the same council member kind of chastising this person, arguing with them, and basically defending the bird scooter contract and how that was going to play out.
Okay, and the bird scooter contract, what's your understanding of what that issue is?
I believe the citizen had concerns about how the bird scooters might impact, let's say, public sidewalks and people who might be disabled who can't get around these scooters if they're littering the sidewalks.
Okay, and does the city have control over whether bird scooters are on the city sidewalks?
I would say the control of that would be in the user of the scooter and where they leave it. I have personally seen them all over the place,
But
including.
is it your understanding that the city has some kind of arrangement with bird scooter whereby it approved, the presence of bird scooters on city streets?
I believe they did. To the nature of as to where those scooters should end up, I don't know the answer to that. As you can see, I think one of these images shows 4 scooters parked on a sidewalk in front of businesses in Midtown, completely blocking the sidewalk.
But Devin Reese, as a council member, has, in your understanding, has some modicum of control over bird scooters on city streets, right?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I assume he would have the impact to vote yes or no on the franchise agreement. As to whether or not he has control over where people leave their scooters, I would say probably not.
Okay, I'm not asking about whether he has control over where they leave the scooters.
Sorry.
I'm just asking about the relationship between Bird and the city of Reno.
Yeah, I would imagine they would have a policy related to this, that they can't be blocking pedestrian walkways, for example.
Okay, and that would be something that a citizen could complain to their city council member about if they had an issue with how bird scooters were being managed, right?
Yes, and again, this other request regarding bird complaints, again, not subject to this action here, but shows that these are a chronic issue and that there's been hundreds of complaints.
Okay, and Your Honor, I move that Exhibit 21 be admitted into the record.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this exhibit. I don't think proper foundation has been laid. This is an unsworn declaration by the party. Not sure how Natalie Handler, I'm not sure who Natalie Handler is. And given that this is an unsworn declaration, I would insist on seeing the telephone for contextual purposes, because I can't tell whether or not this represents the entire conversation between this individual and Councilmember Reese, or whether it is piecemealed together. So that is my objection.
Objection sustained.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'd like to make an offer of proof, if I may.
Certainly.
Thank you, Your Honor. Addressing the issue of the unsworn declaration, Nevada has adopted the Unsworn Uniform Declarations Act and NRS 53. If a declaration provided under NRS 53045, if a declaration provided indicates that it's made, a statement is made under the penalty of perjury, it's admissible in lieu of an affidavit. We believe proper foundation has been laid because this statement relates directly to an issue as to whether or not Devin Reese was communicating about the bird scooters. The statements in the text messages are statements of the defendant or the an agent of the city itself. So they're and they're not offered the truth to prove the truth of the matter asserted, whether or not the bird scooters are an issue or whatever, Ms. Handler and Mr. Reese are arguing about in these texts. They're just offered to prove that they exist.
I appreciate that, Mr. Busby. Mr. McElhinney, any response?
Yes, Your Honor, my objection remains the same. I don't think proper foundation has been laid. That's not a reliable, in my mind, accounting of the conversation. While I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything untoward, I have no way of knowing whether or not that is the complete conversation and how to put it in context with the truth of the matter the petitioner is trying to assert, which is that he was entitled to these text messages and or that Mr. Reese or Councilmember Reese is conducting city business on his personal phone.
Thank you. The court will admit or take judicial notice of Exhibit 21, but it will be limited not to the content, but rather to the fact that there was a correspondence there.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Dr. Conrad, can you please turn to Exhibit 23?
Yes,
Okay, do you recognize this document?
yes.
Okay, what is it?
This is a declaration of Nick Shepak, another person who, within the window of time that we had requested these records for social media messages, was able to provide those records to us. This is the individual who did it, not the city. So in this case, it shows the council member providing or asking questions of a constituent related to municipal court and warrant forgiveness.
Okay.
And this is the individual, Nick. This is his response to that.
Okay.
Providing a lengthy response, and then the council member responds back. It seems very clear he was gauging this constituent's perspective and feedback for, in this case, a budget process. And he even cites the city budget, I believe, in these messages as well.
Okay. And do you know which messaging platform these messages are from?
I believe this is Twitter.
Okay. And do you recall whether in your request you asked specifically for Twitter messages?
I did.
Okay. Would these messages in Exhibit 23 be responsive to your public records request? Is it your understanding that that would be the case?
Yes.
Here, and I move that Exhibit 23 be admitted on the same basis as Exhibit 21 with the same conditions.
Agreed, Your Honor. No objection.
Oh, again, with the limitation that I cited on 21. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. All right. Dr. Conrad, can you please turn to Exhibit 14?
Yes, this is a video, actually, so I'm not going to play it. Unless you want me to, I'm happy to play it.
Oh, that's okay. I believe we want to look at, I'm sorry, Exhibit 15.
15, okay, got it.
We'll skip over 14. Try and move things along. Do you recognize Exhibit 15, Your Honor? Or I'm sorry, Dr. Conrad?
I do, yes.
Okay, what is it?
This is a records request for during the U.S. Conference of Mayors conference last year. The mayor gave away copies of a NFT of the space whale to all of the U.S. mayors that were in attendance at the conference. And so I requested a copy of that NFT. Okay.
What's your understanding of what an NFT is?
It's a digital representation of, in this case, the space whale. And that NFT or a representation of it was played at the conference.
Okay. And what's your understanding of the city's response to your records request?
Essentially, they denied the request, saying that the mayor, implying, as I read it, that the mayor was not acting in her official capacity, and said that the records were not public records, that they are not in possession of them.
Okay. Did you ever receive substantive response to your public records request in the form of any records?
No records, just a letter denying that they were public records, essentially.
Okay. Was your records request closed after that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Your Honor, I'd move that Exhibit 15 be admitted into the record.
No objection.
So admitted. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Conrad, I'd like to circle back to the first few records requests we moved to cover something I like to discuss. Would you take a look at Exhibit 25?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize Exhibit 25?
I do.
What is it?
This is the sworn affidavit of Deputy Police Chief Tom Robinson.
Okay. And I'd like to refer you to paragraph number 5 of that affidavit.
Mhm.
And I'm going to read you the first part of it. Based on Don Ray of Nevada v. Bradshaw, 106 EV 630, 1990, and other applicable case law, the Reno Police Department does not release any records, including but not limited to police records or body-worn camera footage relating to an open and ongoing criminal investigation, because to do so would A, hamper the ongoing investigation's ability to obtain uncorrupted evidence and or increase the likelihood of materially prejudicing a jury or panel, and or taint the original testimony of a witness called to testify in court, and or affect the ability of the defense to successfully suppress any part of the investigative file through court proceedings if applicable, and or reveal confidential sources or investigative techniques. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. Now, returning to the first two sets of records that we discussed with the court in exhibits 1, 2, and 3.
Mhm.
Do you recall that the Don Ray case was used as a basis to deny the records request in those instances?
I do.
Okay. Is that consistent with your experience of how the city of Reno, or in your experience in the course of your reporting, how the city of Reno treats body-worn camera footage in cases where there's an open and ongoing investigation?
No.
Okay. Can you explain why that's the case?
The city regularly releases body cam footage prior to investigations being concluded, particularly in the case of officer-involved shootings. I believe there was a policy, I don't have it in front of me, or at least there was public statements at some point in the past few years saying that the city would release body cam footage of officer-involved shootings, I believe within a certain period of time. I'm not sure that they've done that in all cases, but they regularly do release that body cam footage.
Okay. So are you saying that the city of Reno selectively chooses cases where it releases body-worn camera footage?
That appears to be the case, yes.
Okay. And Your Honor, I'd like the court to take judicial notice of NRS 289-830. The provision therein that states that all body-worn camera footage is a public record.
Thank you, Mr. Busby. Objection, Mr. McElhinney?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. So taken.
Thank you, Your Honor. And specifically, that's NRS 289-832. Any record made by a portable event recording device pursuant to this section is a public record.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Dr. Conrad, do you think that the statement of in the affidavit of Officer Robinson in paragraph 5 that we discussed, do you think that accurately reflects how the city actually acts in response to requests for body cam footage or the release of body cam footage?
I can't speak for anyone other than myself, but I am aware that they regularly do deny records or body-worn camera footage pretty much consistently,
Okay.
except for the cases that I mentioned before, the officer-involved shootings and perhaps other situations. I'll give you another example. There was a homeless protest in downtown, I believe it was in 2021. And in that case, an attorney was able to get copies of body-worn camera footage for the trial. So in that case, the trial had not been completed, not even been conducted. And the attorney in that case was able to get that footage from the city.
Okay. All right. And when the city invokes Don Ray in response, or invoked Don Ray, Bradshaw, in response to your records requests in exhibits 1, 2, and 3, are you readily able to discern whether or not their claimed basis for withholding the records is true or not?
No.
Okay. Why?
Well, Don Ray is a pretty far-reaching decision, and my interpretation, I'm not an attorney, but my interpretation of it is that it presumes that records are public unless specifically stated otherwise, or there's a specific reason that they should be withheld. And I don't see that a blanket citation of Don Ray would take the place of the obvious Nevada Public Records Act provisions.
And Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to move that exhibit 25 be admitted into the record.
No objection, Your Honor.
So admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And just zooming out again for a moment, Dr. Conrad, is lack of resources a typical explanation that you receive as to why there's delays in receiving responses to public records requests?
At the City of Reno, it is.
Okay, is that your experience with other agencies or local governments across the state?
No.
Okay. Have you ever been provided with any substantive basis as to why the city lacks resources to fulfill public records requests as opposed to other agencies?
I was in a legislative hearing in 2019 related to this issue of public records, and the city clerk at that time testified that the city does not have resources to timely respond to public records requests, essentially. I mean, I believe we submitted that hearing as an exhibit.
Would that be exhibit 16?
Yes.
Okay, and I believe that's a pretty long hearing, so but we would ask that the court admit exhibit 16 into the record as a government record kept in the regular course of government business.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 16, so admitted.
So, Dr. Conrad, what are your impressions of whether or not the city's claimed rationale of lacking resources to be able to adequately respond to public records requests makes sense?
Well, any agency can make that claim. I was a longtime government employee. I did public records training. I was a public information officer, and those are not the standards that I would personally have advocated for. And again, it's not my experience that other agencies respond in this way as consistently.
Is it your impression that the City of Reno's delays in responding to public records requests are willful?
It would appear that that's the case. I was surprised about a year ago when, maybe less than a year ago, the current city clerk similarly testified that they have gotten increasing numbers of records requests and continued to iterate or reiterate at that time a year ago, so about 3 years later, that the resources are lacking to produce those records.
Okay. I'd like you to turn to exhibit 20 if you could.
Okay.
Do you recognize this exhibit?
I do.
What is it?
This is, I believe, which request was this one? This is one of the body cam requests.
Okay. And I mean, it just looks to me like a bunch of files from something. Can you explain what it is?
Yeah, actually, I believe this is for request number 3. Let me double check that. Yeah, I believe this is for request number 3. So this is again body cam footage.
All right. So what does this show?
So this shows that the copies of what they provided to me were posted online. I believe it looks like September 6th. They were not made available to me until weeks later.
Okay, so based on this record, it appeared to you that they had already uploaded the files to the drive, but they weren't shared with you for an extended period of time. All right.
That's how I interpret it. Yes.
Okay. All right. Is this your first case against the City of Reno related to public records?
No.
Okay. So you've had previous matters before courts involving disputes with the City of Reno over public records, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you recall, essentially what happened in the previous case?
That case is still pending in the Nevada Supreme Court on two matters, both relating to, one is related to the Don Race citation of timeliness in responding, I believe, yes, and whether or not it's an open or active investigation. And the other pending matter is whether or not the city has the legal authority to redact police officer faces from body cam footage.
Okay. So, Your Honor, if I'd like to request that the court take judicial notice of Exhibit 19, which is the order granting in part and denying in part Dr. Conrad's previous petition in case number CV 21-00875.
No
Mr.
objection.
McElhinney, thank you.
Nope.
So admitted. I'm sorry, I was talking over you. Please make your record, Mr. McElhinney.
It's all right, Your Honor.
All right, so 19 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Dr. Conrad, were you awarded attorney's fees for violations the Public Records Act in that case by the City of Reno?
I believe we've settled for fees, yes.
Okay, but the court's order in Exhibit 19 awarded you costs and fees. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And some of the relief was granted, other parts were denied, correct?
Correct.
And the parts that were denied are currently on appeal before the Nevada Supreme Court, correct?
Two of them, yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Dr. Conrad, if I may, I'd like to refer you to Exhibit 28.
Okay,
Do you recognize this document?
I do.
What is it?
This is the affidavit of Ashley Turney, who was the city clerk and is now something else
Okay.
at the city.
And therein in paragraph 4, if I could refer you to that, I'm going to read paragraph 4. In my position, I also know that Mayor Sheevy is the vice president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors and was acting in her role as vice president of the U.S. Conference of Mayor when she spoke at the event. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. What's your understanding of that statement?
I mean, it's pretty strange. I don't think one suspends being mayor just because they're supposedly acting in a more private capacity at an event called the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I mean, it's kind of a silly statement.
So is it your understanding that Ms. Turney saying that Hillary Sheevy is not acting as the mayor of Reno when she's at the U.S. Conference of Mayors?
That's how I read it, yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like Exhibit 28 to be admitted.
No objection.
So admitted.
Okay, and lastly, Dr. Conrad, I'd like you to turn to Exhibit number 29.
Okay.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
What is it?
This is the affidavit of Reno Mayor Hillary Sheevy.
So, what's your understanding of the gist of this affidavit?
This one's also, it appears she's trying to say that her presence and the NFTs given out at the U.S. Conference of Mayors were done in a private capacity.
Okay.
And that she has a certain understanding of what a public record is.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to move that Exhibit 29 be admitted as well.
No objection. I'm sorry.
So admitted. That's all right.
Okay, Your Honor, I have no further questions on direct for Dr. Conrad. So I tendered the witness for cross-examination, unless the court would like to hear argument at this time, but I'd be glad to do that after.
We'll hold argument till cross. Yes. Mr. McElhinney, any cross, sir?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Conrad, Ryan McElhinney, Deputy City Attorney. Thank you for being here today. It's nice to meet you. I'm going to go through these requests in a manner that Mr. Busby did in the exact same manner, just per request. I'm going to start with request numbers 1 and 2, which, as I understand, is the body cam, are both body cam footage requests, correct?
Yes.
And as I understand, you were denied those records pursuant to NRS 239-0107. Do you recall that?
I don't.
Okay. You did mention earlier that the denial cited to Donray. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And is it your position that ongoing investigations, the denial of records pursuant to ongoing investigations, is not covered by Donray v. Bradshaw, or is not contemplated by Donray?
I'm going to object to the form, calls for a legal conclusion.
I'm asking him for his layman's opinion on what he thinks Donray means. He opined on it before. I don't know why he should be dissuaded from doing it again.
I think the door was open and he did opine as to his opinion of what Donray meant. So yes, please move forward. Thank you.
I don't have Donray in front of me, so I'm not sure where it may or may not opine on active investigations.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood what you said earlier in your testimony, that you didn't think Donray was the proper citation. It was a as I say, it didn't contemplate the reason for the denial of those records. Did I hear that incorrectly?
Record code.
I'm sorry, what, Luke?
I didn't hear what you said, Mr. Busby. Could you please repeat it?
Oh, I'm not sure. I object, Your Honor, for the record. I don't believe that's what Dr. Conrad said. But
I'm going to allow the question in that I think Mr. McElhinney is asking for clarification on that answer.
I'll withdraw the question and rephrase, Your Honor, if I may. What do you think Donray stands for, Dr. Conrad?
I believe Donray was a case involving the City of Reno Police Department and, at the time, Reno newspapers, RGJ, that was pretty much a landmark public records decision that I believe, again, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't say for sure, but it's my understanding there's a much higher bar to clear if a record is to be denied on the grounds that the investigation is open or active.
Okay, to the best of your abilities, I understand you're not an attorney. Can you describe that bar? What gets you to the bar when the city can rightfully deny body cam footage of an ongoing investigation to a records requester? What is that bar?
I don't know what that bar is. Okay. I guess I would venture to guess that the bar is much higher than simply citing Donray and active investigation, which is the case here.
But again, you don't know what that is.
I believe it would have, the release of that information would have to have some kind of an impact on the investigation. There would be, the revealing of certain perhaps confidential investigative things going on, things of that sort.
Okay. So is it your position that the public's interest in receiving these records outweighs the right of the defendant in that criminal case to stand a fair trial?
It's the position, I believe, of the Nevada Public Records Act and the case history that determines that most records should be considered public. And if they are denied, then there has to be a specific exemption in the Nevada Public Records Act or a pretty strong reason based on some of the case history, or perhaps the Nevada Public Records Act.
Are you aware that contained within Donray and related cases, there's a balancing test?
I am.
For release of these records, can you explain to me how you understand that balancing test?
Pretty similar to what I already said, that the balance tilts in the favor of openness and transparency, and any redactions or records denials have to be, like as I said before, there's a pretty high standard to reach on why those would have to be made.
And you don't think protecting the integrity of an ongoing criminal investigation, You think that's outweighed by the public's interest in receiving these records while the investigation is still ongoing?
I don't believe it's the provenance of necessarily law enforcement to make that determination. Perhaps in some cases it is, but it seems to me, based on my experience, this Donray decision is being used as a catch-all to just deny everything.
And just to be clear, Dr. Conrad, RPD isn't, this is case law I'm talking about. This isn't something that RPD does of their own accord. So I'll ask again, as an attorney, I consider maintaining the integrity of a criminal case paramount to almost anything else. Do you, and I'm going to ask one more time because I don't feel like I'm getting a straight answer. Do you feel like a defendant's right to a fair trial, police officer's right to conduct an investigation is outweighed by the public interest to see these videos when the investigation is ongoing? Yes or no?
I think that's a bit of a false construct, because the body cam footage is released all the time around the country. And that's in cases where investigations are open. The City of Reno and Reno Police Department release body cam footage all the time. So I don't think your question's accurately reflecting what's happening here.
Okay, so you're not going to answer the question?
I'm going to object, Your Honor. Dr. Conrad offered a perfectly reasonable explanation. There's no basis for re-asking the same question over and over again.
Sustained. Please move on, Mr. McElhinney.
Understood. Thank you, Your Honor. Bear with me here for just a second. So, Dr. Conrad, here's a kind of a more of a threshold question I should ask. Is it the interpretation of the case law, the way the city interprets the case law, that you have a problem with, or is it the procedures by which your requests are denied?
The denials, in my opinion, don't meet the intent and purpose of the Nevada Public Records Act. And so I guess I'm not quite clear on your question on how they're denied. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. For the record, I'm going to object compound question.
Withdrawn. I want to go to, let's see which exhibit it is here. The affidavit of Tom Robinson, that would be exhibit 25. And I believe Mr. Busby focused on paragraph 5, which I'll read out loud now. Based on Donray of Nevada v. Bradshaw, 106 Nevada 630, 1990, and other applicable case law, the Reno Police Department does not release records including but not limited to police reports, body-worn camera footage relating to an open and ongoing criminal investigation. To do so would hamper the ongoing investigation's ability to obtain uncorrupted evidence and or increase the likelihood of materially prejudicing a jury or jury panel and or taint the original testimony of witnesses called to testify in court, and or affect the ability of the defense to successfully suppress any part of the investigative file through court proceedings if applicable, and or reveal the confidential sources or investigative techniques. And I want to clarify something that you said. Do you doubt the truth of what Sergeant Robinson is saying in there? Do you think he's not being truthful?
The City of Reno, or the Reno Police Department, frequently releases information related to active and open investigations, whether that's a press release saying we just arrested somebody, or body cam footage of officer-involved shootings, as I've already mentioned. That's frequently released well before there's any conclusion to the investigation. So I don't see how this statement is truthful. The city, I mean, the police always, I mean, they're constantly releasing information on open investigations.
Can you give me an example?
I just did. Officer-involved shooting video, body cam footage.
No, specific incidents, Dr. Conrad. Can you give me a specific incident where they released body cam footage?
Yeah, there's been about, I would say, a dozen in the last 2 years on the Reno Police Department's YouTube channel. And there was one from, I believe it was January of December of a person downtown who I believe was wielding a knife, and then Reno police shot him. That's one example. There was one last fall. There was an individual who was in an apartment complex and pulled a gun out of the door and shot as police were approaching the apartment complex. They shot the suspect, and then they released body cam footage within, I believe, a couple of weeks.
Can you think of any reasons, and let's limit it to those two circumstances you were talking about? Can you think of any reason why RPD would release body cam footage when there was an ongoing investigation in a preliminary manner like that?
Are you asking me to speculate?
No, I'm asking you if you know of any reason why they would release body cam footage.
I believe I already mentioned, I believe it was Chief Soto a few years ago said it was going to be their policy to do so.
Well, I can't comment on that, but are you aware that the city will sometimes release body cam footage in the interest of the public for public safety? Are you aware of that?
I'm not privy to why the city may or may not release body cam footage other than what I've already mentioned.
Okay, I guess. So you're not aware of any situations in the interest of public safety, or does that not make sense to you?
What?
What I want to ask is, you seem to be narrating a conspiracy against you by the city of Reno, and that this is proved up by they release body cam footage all the time. And I'm asking you if you're aware of any circumstances in the interest of public safety when it might be a good idea for law enforcement to release body cam footage.
I think you're asking me to speculate on the reasons why they do and don't do certain things, and I don't know.
You can speculate. You can speculate.
I'm gonna object.
Sustain.
Okay, let's move on to request number 3. Okay. Now, as I understand, request number 3 is, let's see, body cam footage for the sheriff's department officer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. As I understand, the city told you these records would be ready on September 30th, 2022. Is that correct?
Not quite. I mean, ultimately, yes. I think there was a lot of back and forth, as I mentioned earlier, me requesting updates on when these would be released.
Okay.
And ultimately, I believe that was the date that was provided.
Okay. And did you in fact receive those records a few days before September 30th?
I don't have the date in front of me. As that spreadsheet or that screenshot of the Google Drive that we talked about earlier showed, those records were, I believe, posted in earlier September and then provided in later September.
Understood. But you did ultimately receive those records, correct?
Yes, I did. I'm not 100% convinced they're complete. There was some pretty significant redactions in those records or in those body cam footage, both audio and visual redactions. At least that's what it appeared to be. So I'm not sure I can say I completely got all the records, but at least I believe that's the city's position.
Okay. Have you since made another request for these same records in unredacted form, or were you satisfied with what you received?
I have not, to my recollection.
Okay. And you, despite the conversations earlier
actually,
about the—
I need to amend my thing. I believe I did ask in response after I received these, I believe I asked if these were the complete records.
And what was the response, if you recall?
I believe that the response was yes, and that the audio had not been redacted. I would have to go look through my emails to determine that.
Understood. And with regard to the fee schedule, I understand that the charges that were the invoice that came to you for redaction, you ultimately didn't have to pay that, correct?
As indicated before, yes, I did not pay it, and then it was rescinded after we filed this action, yes.
Very well. Okay, let's go to number 4.
Request 4?
Yes, please. Okay, so as I understand, Dr. Conrad, in requests, we'll just talk about number 4. In request number 4, you were asking for, let's see, city emails regarding bird scooters, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, do you recall?
No, that's not correct. I apologize. It was actually emails to and from City of Reno employees and representatives of bird scooters.
Oh, okay. Okay. Just for completeness there. Did the city provide you with an email log pursuant to your request at some point?
Yes.
Okay. Did the city subsequently ask you to more narrowly tailor your request pursuant to that email log?
Yes.
And what was your response to that request?
My response usually is, I don't want a log, I want the emails.
Well, specifically to tailor your request, did you agree to do that?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. And then again, as I understand, this request got pushed down the road a little bit because you insisted on all emails, not just some. Is that correct?
No, that's, I think, an inaccurate characterization. The push down the road a bit is I believe, a matter of months. Yeah, so I'm not sure that's quite an accurate statement.
Okay. How you ultimately received this request? Yes. Or the records you requested?
Yeah, I believe they arrived the day after the city said they would, after their last deadline extension. I believe they arrived the day after that.
And how many emails would you estimate you received pursuant to that request?
I have no idea. I don't have it in front of me.
More than 25?
I don't know.
So let's assume, because I believe they gave you a voluminous, that was the reason for their delay. Am I correct about that?
You mean voluminous? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Oh, no, I believe the delay was in part because they were switching systems.
Okay.
And perhaps the amount of emails, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I believe that would make sense. Yeah, sure.
Okay. And those records were provided on the date given by the city, August 31st, 2022. Is that correct?
So again, I believe they told me they would be available on August 30th, and they were provided the day after, according to my records that I have in front of me.
Okay. Now, I'm going to jump around a little bit here. I want to go to request number 8 because it's kind of contains the same arguments in here. The city again asked you to more narrowly tailor request number 8. Is that correct?
Well, again, it's a little more convoluted. They wanted some like search term issue and, that kind of thing. I think they they did provide a log, and I would have requested that I don't need a log, I just need the emails.
Understood.
And here, actually, they cite the switch of the record system as we're on request 8 still, right? Yeah,
yes,
they
yes.
acknowledge that that's one reason for the delay.
Staffing issues and the change of record software, as I understand it. Okay, so again, you didn't really narrowly tailor your request, did you?
Well,
as requested by the city?
you mean as far as just selecting off of a log which emails I wanted?
Correct?
No, I did not, because the log is not indicative of what's in the actual emails other than perhaps a subject line. So no.
Are you aware that NRS 239 requires some modicum of cooperation from you? And it's reasonable assistance is, I believe, the word in the statute. Do you think you need to have any skin in this game at all in terms of narrowly tailoring voluminous requests?
I'm gonna object for the record. I don't think that's what the rule says, but
Thank you, Mr. Busby. Your objection is noted. I'm going to allow the question.
I'm going to pull up the specific. Let's see. Rob, do you know what section that is? Okay. 239.01.07. 1C2. And I'll just read it and I'll ask the court to take judicial notice of this.
What's that statute number again? 239.01.07?
0107, correct.
Okay.
Subsection 1C2. Okay, except as otherwise provided in paragraph D, if governmental entity is unable to make, provide the person in writing.
Mr. McElhinney, you're talking way too fast. I'm
Oh,
kind of mumbling.
I apologize. I should be
It's all right.
reading silently. Sorry, Linda. Okay. Okay, make a reasonable effort to assist the requester to focus the request in such a manner as to maximize the likelihood the requester will be able to inspect, copy, or receive a copy of the public book or record as expeditiously as possible. So again, you didn't make that effort for requests 4 and 8, correct?
Your Honor, point of order, if I may, or argument issue. I'm gonna object based on the fact that the statute places the burden of cooperation on the government, not on the requester.
That's the plain language of the statute, Mr. Busby. The requester needs to make reasonable efforts to the person giving the records so they can get their records in a more expeditious fashion. And my question to Dr. Conrad, excuse me, is whether he did that, because his complaint seems to, generally talk about delay, unreasonable delay. And when he's faced with an opportunity to streamline his request, he refuses. Is that accurate, Dr. Conrad?
No.
Your Honor, if I may ask for a ruling on the objection, I'll address the court, not my opponent.
Thank you very much. Your objection is overruled. Thank you, Mr. Busby, but it is noted.
Okay, Dr. Conrad, let's move on to request number 5, complaints regarding bird scooters. Okay, now as I understand, once again, the city redacted names of complaining parties pursuant to Bradshaw. Is that correct?
Which request, number 5, you said?
Number 5, correct. And as I understand, that's the complaints, citizen complaint regarding bird scooters.
Hold. Can you rephrase or ask that question again?
The city redacted names of the individual complaining parties pursuant to Bradshaw. Is that correct?
I believe there was one complainant.
Okay, but
redacted.
It was redacted. Okay.
Mm-hmm. There was only a single complainant, and that person's name was redacted.
Okay. Explain to me why you think redaction of individual complainers is a problem.
Well, it's not necessarily. I mean, the problem to me is that you redacted in one instance citing Don Ray, and then in the second instance you unredacted after citing Don Ray. That's the problem.
Okay, understood. So eventually you got the record with the complaining party's name on there, correct?
On request number 5,
Yes.
I don't believe I got the unredacted complaint. I believe
Okay.
that was the second one.
So to clarify, it was the earlier bird scooter request that came to you unredacted with the names of the complaining parties?
No.
Okay, explain it to me then.
So as we already discussed, request number 5 was redacted. I challenged the redaction and did not get a response. Request number 6, I challenged the redaction and I got the records unredacted.
Okay, so request number 6, we're jumping ahead a little bit here, the bar trivia stuff, you did get those requests timely and unredacted, correct?
I had to I replied as to why the name was redacted. I didn't get a response, and instead they just resent the record without the redaction in it.
Okay. Okay.
And we included that because it just shows a pattern that the city seems to just cite Donray for willy-nilly redactions or withholding of records.
Understood. Okay, let's move on to request number 7, the body-worn camera of Jason Wood, Sheriff's Deputy.
Your Honor, if I may we take a bathroom break at some point?
I was just about to do that. I was looking for a good place to stop. So Mr. McElhinney, is this a good place to take a quick break?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, it's about, my clock says 10:36. Let's be back at 10:45.
Very well.
Thank you.